Same old story.
Yeah.
Bubba ranked 7th in the poll. That's good.
There it is.
That's
There
good.
it is. Same old story, like literally the same old story.
Well, I wish it was the same old story. It was actually a new story.
Well, it was. I'm talking about Mike down there being the same old
guy.
story. It's a little different story.
Different way to lose.
Different way to lose, unfortunately.
Your voice is still coming back from that trip to Iowa City, huh?
Yeah, well, I don't know what it is, but yeah, that's part of it. Certainly part of it.
Well, it is
Yeah.
what it is. Mike the Mailman's here to be your therapist, and so are the rest of us. Grab your pencil and your paper. It's the obligatory PSU pregame show. Yeah, well, it's all awful, frankly. It's the obligatory PSU pregame show presented by HappyValley.com. We're here back at University Wine Company, which is one nice thing.
Really cool.
It's a cool spot to be last week, and we're glad to be back again. It's the bye week for the Nittany Lions, much needed. I'm your fake host, Chris Buchanani, joined by my usual cast of characters for the full show. I got beloved campus icon Mike the Mailman,
Everybody, we're here.
eternal font of positivity, which we are going to need after last week.
Yeah.
Former Penn State and NFL defensive tackle Brandon Noble.
Yep.
How you doing, Wolfman?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
As good as can be.
As good as can be. Absolutely.
That's
That's
good.
exactly right.
And coming off a busy first 6 weeks of the season between road trips and weddings, former OnwardState.com managing editor Kevin Orton.
Finally caught up to me and this voice.
I'll tell you what, I'm getting, I come up here once a week and I kind of do a handful of things over the course of my weekends disappear real quick, from coaching high school football to running a restaurant and then doing NFL games on Sundays every once in a while and then coming up here. And usually like by Tuesday I'm done, right? And each year it's gotten a little bit harder to do it, but I just look at him and I marvel at the fact that you're able to do this. And I am mildly jealous, but I took a nap on Sunday and I couldn't imagine
Driving 12 hours?
Yeah, not getting that nap and being here right now to do this show. So,
Driving 12 hours, recording a podcast
Yes.
from the road.
Yes.
Which I do want to say, we're going to do our best to wrap up what happened with the Nittany Lions last week, but way more than we can cover, even in a full hour of television. So I do encourage you to check out the obligatory PSU podcast. Get that wherever you get your podcasts. We go way more in depth. Good conversations, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kevin and his travel schedule puts the three of us to shame. And speaking of shame, Kevin, the result in Iowa City last week.
Yeah, that was a shame. It certainly was, Chris. You nailed it. No, I mean, it's not the same old story. It's not at all. It's weird having a loss and not having anyone or anything to blame, really, but the cruel universe that makes college football so awful and so special, right? Because Penn State wins that game by 14 points more. If there wasn't an injury to Sean Clifford, I think that is clear to anyone that's not an Iowa fan on the internet. So that's the cruel part about it. It's not like the normal sort of half a dozen games you can cite where the worst part of Franklin's coaching ability comes out and we choke in some debilitating manner. This is sort of a new one. So it's a weird one, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, credit where it's due. I'm sure Mike would like me to be positive.
Sure.
All right, Mike?
Sure.
The defense continues to surprise, even based on what we saw through the first 5 weeks. What
Yeah.
they did in that game, that was a heroic effort.
Yeah, it was. And that's, to lose a game like that, by 3 points is hard. They did everything they could defensively to win that football game. And they were as good as they've been almost all year. I mean, I really think when you look at and Iowa's offense is nothing special, right? They're not. But
You don't say.
No, but they do what they do really well, and they have done it really well for a long time. So that's why they win as many games as they do. But I think defensively, I mean, even with Mustafa out, right, and the Brisker got, you know what I mean? Like guys are going down right and left. Then that's a whole nother podcast conversation, right? The reaction out there. But like to play that way with the second team guys coming in and playing was really, really impressive. And that group, they're feeling it, and I am sure that they were had a tough time moving around on Sunday and Monday after that one, because that was a battle. And it's hard to lose those. Those are harder to lose than getting blown out. You lose 56-10, you can kind of walk off the field and shake it off. You lose one like that, like you said, Kev, kind of because of an act of God too. Those stick with you.
I have a hard time even talking about this like it was a football game, because it wasn't a football game, right? I mean, once you saw what Penn State's backup quarterback could do after that, the first possession where we know that the second string quarterback can't really even field a snap, right? Cannot field a snap. Then it ceased to become a football game, and it became can Penn State's defense hold Iowa to less than 14 points for the next 2.5 quarters? That was all it was.
Yep.
I mean, that's not a football game. That is, can the defense, if Iowa gets 11, 12, 13 possessions, hold them to less than 2 touchdowns? And I didn't say 2 touchdowns because Penn State loses that game in overtime 10 out of 10 times. Less than 14 points. And they couldn't, but for a missed tackle by Tariq Castro-Fields and some blown coverage.
Yep.
I don't know, it's hard to say whose fault that was. Ellis Brooks, who had a great game
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah.
I mean, what can you ask? Like Iowa, after Sean Clifford went out, I think Iowa's longest drive was like 45 yards.
Correct. Yeah.
Because of their punter and our incompetence with the backup quarterback. So it wasn't a football. It was not a football game. It was not a legitimate football game. It wasn't even really a football game. It was, here's the ball, Iowa, from midfield, try to score on us for the next 2.5 quarters. And gosh, they almost pulled it off.
Yeah.
Almost, which is
not
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. The production from the quarterback spot, sans Sean Clifford, was shockingly poor. I mean, I think, Mike, we talked about it. Again, on the podcast, listen to the podcast. You brought up the Iowa fans and the fake injury conspiracy. We'll get into it, but look, the level of lunatic conspiracy theorizing by these people after a win is just mind-blowing to me. But we talked about, Mike, being at the blue-white open scrimmage in the spring, and you just saw from that small sample size of Taquan Roberson.
And we both knew that. We both knew. We said, wow.
Clifford gets hurt, we're in big trouble.
And we knew that.
Big trouble.
And here's the trouble in 2021. Look, Taquan Roberson was a 4-star recruit and had an Ohio State offer. And I've only seen the guy interview once. He came out after the game and talked to the press for 10 minutes. He seemed like a really nice dude, really respectful. He's still lost deer in the headlights, and who can blame him?
Yeah.
But seemed like a good dude. So it's not a personal thing. He's just not a Division I quarterback, very clearly. 3 years in the program, can't field a snap. I mean, that's what it is. But it's so hard to keep backup quarterbacks in this day and age, because if you're even a decent quarterback, if you're a decent quarterback, why are you going to not transfer to somewhere where you can play? Decent quarterbacks want to play football. Right? Will Levis is undefeated at Kentucky.
Yeah.
You're not going to keep a backup anymore unless you can time it right, where you're a backup for a year, maybe 2, and then you're basically promised to start for a year or 2. So that's just the reality of the situation now. You're not going to have any depth there. And if you have a 4-star bust in the middle of a bunch of transfers, you're screwed if your quarterback gets hurt.
Do you think coaches will now maybe do alternate quarterbacks more? Say, hey, we're going to alternate guys
Not
to
this
keep
staff.
a second guy there?
Not this staff. They had plenty of opportunities to get Roberson on the field up to this point, knowing the depth behind Sean Clifford, and they didn't do it. But you're heading into your bye week. You wish you were talking about being undefeated. Instead, you got a lot of questions. We'll keep getting into them on the other side of the break. Stay with us. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the obligatory PSU pregame show from University Wine Company, continuing to wrap up the fly in the ointment in Penn State's march to the playoffs from last weekend. And the question I want to put to the whole panel is, Kevin seems well prepared to write off the result last week as just an act of God, quote unquote. I do want to get into a little bit to what extent we can place some blame on the shoulders of James Franklin and his staff for not having put the effort in to have a more competent passer via the transfer portal, to have not, by James's own admission, not better prepared Taquan Roberson to go into that situation and then not modified their game plan when it was clear it wasn't working. So somebody say online, and it's sickening that it might actually be true, that Penn State would have been better off, given what a good punter Jordan Stout is, taking 3 straight knees and punting for the entire game, given the way the defense played. So I'm going to go to you first, Noble. How much blame do you place on the coaches?
A significant amount. I mean, to me, that's where the issue is. You know, there are a couple of reasons. Number one, the kid wasn't prepared. By their own admission, that was the right thing to say, too. I mean, 100%, you know, take some of the blame off the kid, which is what you should do as a head coach. But it's pretty obvious that he hasn't been prepared to go play.
I mean, he couldn't feel the snap.
Like Kevin said, like he hasn't taken a snap. Right? That's
they
like
weren't prepared to adjust to the crowd noise in the second half.
And look, I've been in Haluba Hall plenty of times with those speakers on in there. It's plenty loud, right? And so you've done that before. And I'm sure that they still play crowd noise at practice. So those are things. To me, it's a deficiency in the offense being able to run the football, right? Because that's how you take care of that issue. If you've got a good running game, now look, Iowa's super stout against the run. They play great defense. I mean, they do. But if you're going to be a playoff team, if you're going to win a national title, you do have to run the football. And I know everybody kept talking about, you know, after the, was it Indiana game or the game where Clifford threw for 400 yards. We don't need to run the ball because Clifford can throw for 400 yards.
You do.
Sometimes people get hurt playing football.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is something that you have to prepare
bubble
for.
Screens are the run game.
You have to prepare for this. Like to me, that is 100% what it is. You have to be able to run the football at some point during the season. We've all said that. We did not realize it was going to be because Sean Clifford got hurt, right? But if they can run the football, they can win that football game.
Well, and you have to commit to it.
You have to do it.
And you have to make Iowa's defenders believe that there's a legitimate threat. You're going to hand off the ball.
Right.
And not let a guy who clearly cannot complete a pass just drop back over and over and over again and engage in this exercise of endless futility.
Yeah.
The guy couldn't throw downfield. He couldn't throw intermediate with any accuracy. And those little dump off, you know, get the ball east, west, wide to the sidelines. Once you sniff that out and you know there's no threat of going downfield or handing the ball off, 100% it's over.
And he couldn't even see the open receivers. I mean, there were a lot of open receivers, and he could have
Totally missed them.
Right.
Just
And
totally missed them.
Look, the first time you get thrown into a real football game, like things move
I'm sure fast.
fast.
Yeah.
And playing at Kinnick sucks. You guys talked about it last week.
And I cannot imagine what it is like to play quarterback. I know that from my position directly in front of the quarterback and looking at him, things moved very fast the first few times I got thrown into a football game. And it does slow down, that's a good thing, right? Should we see an extended period of time with him in there?
How much would old number 93 have loved to be lining up over the center's left shoulder with Taquan Roberson back there?
Can't snap the ball to the quarterback. Yes, let's go, right? And they're not going to run the football, right? There's no threat of it, like you said. So I do think that it was a failure of the offensive staff to be able to protect that kid when they had to put him in the game. And you have to have that plan in your head because starting quarterbacks have gotten hurt since they started playing football. It happens. You don't ever want it to happen, but when it does, it can do two things, right? You can either mitigate the damage, right? If you're a great football team and you can win, that's a big word, right? I saved that one all day. Or it just absolutely everything goes to hell in a handbasket, which is what we saw on Saturday.
Kev, I'm going to pull you out of your reverie. What do you got?
Yeah, very little do I sign to the coaching staff, actually, which is why it's so weird, because usually after one of these losses, you can point to any number of a dozen different decisions that James Franklin or whoever made and say that was objectively the wrong thing to do. You can't do it for this game, right? I mean, Robertson's been in the program for 3 years, and he is not a Division I quarterback, right? From both that game and anyone who's ever gone to a practice and just the murmurs coming out. I mean, James Franklin's been calling out Roberson in press conferences for 2 years now for not developing in the way they want him to. That's not on the coaching. That's just sometimes I could work out with Nick Saban for 18 hours a day for the next 10 years. I'm not going to be able to take a snap in Division I college football. Sometimes just you don't have it, and they don't have it. They don't have it. I agree. I mean, you can hide a bad quarterback if you can even competently run the ball or even run the ball to a mediocre level. And this O-line just gets no push, and our power backs, Noah Kane, Lee, just somehow don't have any power.
That is a huge issue, the regression of those top two tailbacks. Another guy I do just want to mention, I'm hesitant to call out players by name, but man, Brenton Strange had opportunities to help both Sean Clifford and then later Roberson, who was struggling so much.
2 brutal drops.
Yeah. 3, I would say. He should have caught the Sean Clifford pass on the play where Cliff got injured. Huge disappointment to have your starting tight end have the ball in his hands and try. Yeah,
a real good one too.
But I don't blame the staff because you can't. How are you going to prepare someone who's clearly not a Division I quarterback to come into Kinnick in that environment? You just there's no amount of preparation that can do that. Just like there's no amount of preparation that can make me a Division I quarterback. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Well, it is what it is. We're here. There's more season in front of us. We're going to move on. We'll change it up for a little bit on the other side of the break. And then we'll talk more football, I guess. Stay with us. Okay, last Iowa-related segment, I promise.
Good. It's about time.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But I did want to talk to Kevin a little bit. Kev, since you had the experience of being out there, I wanted to get your take on, the experience of watching the game from the stands. And specifically, I know you had maybe a little bit different read being there among the fans than a lot of folks did watching at home.
Well, read in what sense? It's one of the better Big Ten stadiums. They always get up for those games. It's only 69,000, so it's smaller than almost any Big Ten stadium, but it doesn't feel smaller.
Right.
They managed to somehow pull that off. So, great environment. They were billing it all week as the top 3 game in Kinnick Stadium history, and they were loud. When we were having all the false starts, it actually wasn't in the student section. It was on the opposite sides, actually sort of near the Penn State section. They got loud when they needed to. Once they went down, it was fairly quiet. It was hot. It was annoyingly hot, but a lot of wind gusts that kept us not dying. I'm sure you probably saw on TV they had to hold the ball for kickoffs.
Yeah.
The fans were not happy about that.
No,
That was also part of James Franklin's conspiracy to slow down the game, was to have the ball keep falling off the tee.
Interesting, yeah.
They were really mad
It's a new one, yeah.
They were mad at the wind and the injured players. Or maybe not, Kev.
Well, what do you mean?
The perception of those of us watching at home was that the crowd was booing because they thought that our players were faking injury to slow down their already glacially paced offense, which does not need to be slowed down in any way, shape, or form.
Well, obviously that wasn't the case.
And doing so, by the way, with our All-American defensive tackle and defensive end and safety, like the guys you would least want to be forced to take off the field for a play, all part of James Franklin's master plan, clearly.
A few things about Iowa boos everything, right? If they have an incomplete pass and there's even a defender within 15 yards of the receiver, they're going to be booing because it wasn't a pass interference. They boo everything. They boo the ball falling off the tee, everything. I don't think many people, and it's a chain reaction, right? You just need 100 people to boo, and then it's 69,000 booing. I don't think the people in the stadium.
True.
I don't think the people in the stadium necessarily thought that Penn State was faking injuries. I just thought that they were being, I can't say the word on TV, but something soft.
Yes, soft.
Wimps.
Yeah.
Think about
Yes.
Think about a synonym that I can't use.
Yes.
But not that they were faking injuries, but they were just being soft.
Right.
And anecdotally, so you're in there, it's a powder keg. Everyone's screaming, yelling, amped up for the next play. And then all of a sudden you look and there's someone grabbing their knee on the ground. It's annoying, right?
Right.
And it's not a rational reaction. These guys, Penn State had players who were legitimately hurt, obviously, two of their best. But anecdotally, it seems like Penn State this year goes down and stays down a lot more on defense. I don't think that's any sort of conspiracy. I think I suspect they were told, hey, if you have anything that you feel,
That's what you're taught.
feel like
it is
could be
what
a
you're
problem,
taught.
stay down because you don't want to get up
Right.
and not be able to get off the field.
Substitution issues, absolutely.
Or make the injury worse. But some of these guys go down, Ebiketie down 3 times a game, but he's never actually hurt. He's back in the next play. And so when you're
it's like soccer.
When the passion, and I'm not criticizing him at all for that, but when you're screaming, yelling, you're up, the next play, are we going to get a stop? And then you have to wait 3 to 5 minutes for that to happen. That's annoying. And when it happens 15 times,
Yeah, except
annoyed.
soccer
Because it does
players
if it
don't
does
have
become immediate.
325-pound monsters slamming
No,
into
I'm
them
with
on
you. I'm
every
just
play.
saying.
I'm
Like,
not criticizing. I actually,
Yeah.
this is not the Penn State fan sentiment. Like, I didn't care that they booed. That doesn't bother me. That the Iowa assistant coach that was laying around the
yeah.
ground was, I think, yeah, right.
I can't do it on TV, but
Unprofessional, to say the least. But I don't care if the fans doing that because I'm a Penn State fan and I was annoyed at that. Right?
okay. All right, fair. Okay,
fair enough.
no more Iowa. We're done. We're moving on. More when we come back.
What a great spot. Damn it, I've been waiting all week. Counting down the days till I'm back in my seat.
Welcome back to the obligatory PSU pregame show presented by HappyValley.com from University Wine Company in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania. Things did not go the way we wish they would have last week, but it's time to get up off the mat and move on. And it's the bye week, so I think it is a good chance to step back and take stock of what has been, on balance, still a really good first 6 weeks for Penn State, and a little bit of a hiccup at the end. So I asked you guys to give me your best and worst things from your perspective through 6 games for the Nittany Lions. Mike the Mailman, I'm going to start with you.
I don't know if it's the worst thing, but losing is bad. But, you know,
It is actually the worst.
Hot take.
it could be a blessing in disguise. Later on, we'll talk about that. But yes, they lost. Okay. The best thing, they're still ranked 7th in the nation, which, you know, if you said to us at the beginning of the season, at the halfway mark, they're ranked 7th in the country, that's a great place to be. I think they're going to be fine.
No, look, that's right. Because you modify your expectations based on the way the team is playing. After 5 games, you start thinking about this team as a playoff contender, and then they go out to Kinnick, and what happens at Kinnick happens again.
Stays at Kinnick.
Stays with you for a long, long time,
Yeah.
Brandon Noble. But you're still number 7 with 3 currently top 10 teams remaining on your schedule, so your fate's ahead of you. I'll buy that.
Oh, thanks.
Nobes, what do you got?
So for the positive, we'll start there.
Yeah.
The defense obviously has played tremendous. For me, though, the big thing, the improvement, the reason why they are so much better is the way that they are tackling, especially that linebacker group.
Amen.
They are absolutely
cheers you on that one.
absolutely all over the ball carrier. As soon as he catches the ball or hits the line of scrimmage, like they fill gaps. They're where they're supposed to be. They're doing it with great leverage. I mean, all super, little tiny things that we haven't done in a few years. Mm-hmm. And I really love the way those guys are playing. I love the way the interior of the D-line is playing. Obviously, losing P.J. Mustipher this week hurt a lot. Those young guys stepped in, though, and played pretty well.
Let's talk about that, real quickly. I thought that last week put in a really tough situation. Frankly, I thought in a comparably difficult situation to what Taquan Roberson had to do on the offensive side of the ball. Devon Ellis and Keziah Izzard especially, who has not played a lot of meaningful, high-pressure snaps, they both look like they took a step.
They played really well, and that's what you need from those guys. You need your backup to come in and play well. I mean, at the end of the day, because guys get hurt in this game. So they were ready. They came and played. I thought that group, the D-line, the interior D-line, the linebackers, the safeties are as good as there are in college football. Maybe not Georgia level, but they're really good. Yeah. On the other side of that, the negative is I think the lack of commitment or willingness to run the football. I mean, look at
or
ability, right? Well, I do think there's a little bit of both there. I think that offensive coordinators sometimes get bored and they prefer to throw the football. That's how they become gurus and what they are.
They prefer to throw the football even when the quarterback clearly can't
throw the football. That's exactly right. So I think that is a negative, and it bit us, out there at Kinnick this week. You've got to be able to run the football at some point in the football season, and that's not something that you just walk out there and have the ability to do. So I think that's the most disappointing, kind of the worst thing I've seen, and it's been consistent, for the last couple of years. But I love the way our defense plays.
And for me, the best thing, and it is about to be put to the test once we get back to playing games next week, is the tenacity and mental fortitude of this team, especially after last season. Very impressive. On the flip side, to me, actually the most, that has been mentioned already, disappointing thing, and I talked about it already, is the tight end position is your safety blanket for your quarterbacks. And especially given what happened last week, you need those guys to be reliable. And all the way back to the Wisconsin game, I thought there were opportunities for Brenton Strange and Theo Johnson to come up big and catch balls that were in their hands, and they've consistently failed to do so. So that has been a little bit of a letdown for me based on my expectations coming in. Kevin?
Yeah, I'll go sort of more general, I think. Well, I think finally in the Franklin area, we've had players develop and live up to their hype from year to year, right? Especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Ellis Brooks, Jesse Luketa, Mustafa, Clifford, Joey Porter Jr., Terry Castro Fields to an extent.
Yeah.
These were all like not very good football players or dreadful football players in some cases last year, and they've all stood up this year and they're beasts. Right?
Yeah.
Finally, they've lived something between. You know, we all hated the excuses last year about fake season, COVID season, et cetera, and I didn't believe it, and I still don't believe it fully. But to see the improvement, especially of Brooks and Luketa and Clifford, from last year to this year has been awesome and not something you have seen on James Franklin teams till now. So that they came out of nowhere. That was a big surprise, and it's great to see. Worst, I think, is just depth in general, and it doesn't set up well for next season and the season after, perhaps, right? Clearly, quarterback, that's the hot button issue this week. But even in the end of some of these blowout games, the second team anywhere is not doing anything.
Number one recruiting class this year.
Right.
We're going to
giving
need
up
it.
a ton of points, ton of yards.
Got to cut you off. We'll be right back. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the obligatory PSU pregame show, coming to you from University Wine Company, a super cool spot here in Happy Valley. Great spot to hang out on a Friday night before a football game or on the bye weekend, for example. They're going to have some music here. And, we're happy to be here again. And for this segment, I want to talk about what is in front of the Nittany Lions, because as deflating as last weekend was, the schedule sets up that Penn State can still go back to the Big Ten championship game and is still going to play three teams that are currently ranked in the top 10. Probably won't be the case by the time those games come around, but top 10 pedigree for three opponents left on Penn State's schedule. So I just want to look ahead and what's in front of Penn State, because for all the disappointment, Lions still control their own destiny.
Yep.
Yeah, look, when you look at the nice thing about the schedule too is it's kind of, and I don't want to jinx us, right? But it's kind of easy, hard, easy, hard, easy, hard, right? So you go Illinois, Ohio State, Maryland, Michigan, right? And then some team in New Jersey, and then Michigan State. The problem is the Maryland and the team in New Jersey will emotionally be up for our game, right? You know what I mean? And that's
And we'll be emotionally down.
yeah, because you're coming off of or you're looking ahead. You try not to do those two things. But they're all very, very winnable games depending on what happens with the quarterback position. I mean, they are, and those are pluses. Or can the offense figure out a way to handle not having Sean around and winning football games? And that's a challenge.
For the purposes of this segment, let's just assume we have something better than a peewee offense for the remainder of the schedule.
Then I feel pretty good about things.
You figure Michigan State, Michigan State are going to lose. Iowa's going to lose one or two games. I mean, they play.
Let me stop you right there. Who do you think Iowa is going to lose to? Because the rest of their schedule is crap, and I still don't think it's possible.
Either at Wisconsin or at Nebraska.
Yeah.
So there's two potential.
At Nebraska game, the Cornhuskers have been like a statistical outlier.
Yeah.
The number of
You're
one-score games they have lost.
Yep.
They are a proud program. They're going to be playing at home. Their defense is playing well. I could see maybe that's where Iowa stubs their toe. But since you brought it up.
Well, Penn State doesn't want them to. We don't want Iowa to lose.
Yeah,
We want
right.
them to win, right? We want them to
Because, I mean, look, it is, Penn State does control their own destiny. And this conversation is impossible to have without knowing the quarterback situation. Hopefully, by the time you watch this, you also don't know the quarterback situation. Because if you know it, that means he's out for the year. And if you don't know it, that means there's still a chance that we might have a competent quarterback on center.
Yeah.
But Penn State will have the best one-loss resume in the country if somehow they get through this slate. It's probably about 5 to 10% that they can go 6-0 the rest of the way, even with Sean Clifford. It's obviously 0% with Roberson. They're not going to win another game with Roberson. Maybe you beat Illinois and maybe Maryland. You're not beating any other team. But let's assume Clifford's there. It's all in front of you. There is no, especially with Alabama losing and you assume Georgia beats them again, and even if they don't, I think that a 12-1 Big Ten champion Penn State gets in over Cincinnati, especially when you have the Iowa rematch with at
Right.
full strength.
Right.
Yeah.
So that actually, I mean, this is the clear playoff path than beating Iowa and losing to Ohio State. But obviously, you still want that insurance, because I still think 11-1 Penn State that would have lost to Ohio State and beat Iowa still gets in. But there's no doubt with the way the Big Ten is this year and Penn State's crossover games and the Auburn game for Penn State, there's no way that Penn State does not have the best 11-1 record, 11-1 resume rather. It's just a matter of how that stacks up against some of the undefeateds. And if you assume Oklahoma, Georgia, Cincinnati go undefeated, Penn State's obviously 4 if they go undefeated. And I think even if, say, Alabama beats Georgia, you get 2 SEC teams. I think Penn State still slides in over Cincinnati, although it'd be a stupid fight to have. Although one I'd be so glad to have, given the likelihood of Penn State getting through this buzzsaw at this point. And Mustafa's injury did not look great. I don't think he'll be back right away, so that's a big loss, even though some guys stepped up. So in some ways we're fortunate that Penn State's resume is going to be so good, because all of these middling Big Ten teams from last year, Michigan State, Michigan, are up this year. It creates a bigger challenge. I think Penn State will probably be, with Sean Clifford, with Roberson it'll be 30, but with Sean Clifford it'll be 8 or 9 point dogs in Columbus. It's manageable. Although Ohio State looks like they're back on their train.
Yeah.
So,
We're no longer the hunted. We're the hunters now, because people aren't after us. We're
Ooh,
going
I like
after,
that.
We're going after the people now. And I think with or without, Kevin, Texas A&M beat Alabama with a second-team quarterback.
You just got to think about the opportunities in front of you. And what I am dialed in on, Mike, is Halloween weekend for 2 reasons. First of all, because that is our trip to Columbus, which will be, as it seemingly always is, the potential play-in game for the Big Ten championship. But also because that is the weekend of the Michigan State game. Mm-hmm. And you are rooting, I think, for Sparty in that game, because they have to play Ohio State before Penn State plays them. So if you are trying to work the math of how can you get the highest average ranking between Michigan and Michigan State, we're going to find out about both of those teams that weekend. And I think you're probably rooting for Michigan State in terms of where Michigan is going to be ranked and where Michigan State is going to be ranked at the end of the year when Penn State plays them. Because, again, to Kev's point, I think you run the table there and you win the Big Ten championship game.
You're in. We're in.
You're in.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Even if you've got to jump on undefeated Cincinnati, the committee has shown a willingness to evaluate power program body of work and excuse a single loss, especially if you get revenge against Iowa. Because even if they do drop that game to the Cornhuskers, highly unlikely anyone else comes out of the West to play in Indy.
Yep. I like it. Can't lose this week, so
we're good.
We're all right.
Yeah. And I mean, as has been pointed out, the 82 national championship team did lose on October 9th when Georgia was number 1 in the AP poll. Take it for what it's worth. We'll be back.
Prime time, and you know we under the lights now. Gotta shut it down for the whiteout from Tuscaloosa.
Hi, I'm Mike the Mailman. If you or your loved one or a friend has a gambling problem, don't hesitate to call the number below on the screen. They're there to help. Hi everybody, Mike the Mailman with this week's edition of Trends to Treasure. This week is going to be for just Saturday, October 23rd. First up, we have Northern Illinois at Central Michigan. Central Michigan has covered 7 of the last 7 games, so Central Michigan would be the play. For our second pick this week, we have Ohio State at Indiana. Believe it or not, Indiana has covered 8 out of the last 10 games, so take the Hoosiers, plus the points. That's another home dog. Gotta love that. Our third pick this week, we have Oklahoma State at Iowa State. Iowa State has covered 5 of the last 6 games, so my play would be Iowa State. For our bonus pick this week, we have San Jose State at UNLV. San Jose State has covered 7 of the last 9 games, so go with San Jose State. That's it for this week's Trends to Treasure segment. I am Mike the Mailman, and don't forget, bet with your head and not with your heart. Go get 'em.
So there it is. That one-loss 1982 national championship schedule I just talked about. We're not getting paid by the Coca-Cola company.
No, we're
but
not.
if you're watching and you're interested, welcome back to the obligatory PSU pregame show. This is our random number generator segment where we typically predict the score for the weekend's game. No game this weekend. So this is where we go back and revisit our preseason record predictions, and we either adjust them or we stick to our guns. Mike the Mailman, you are the only one of this group who I am 100% sure is going to have to revise his prediction. And that's true because I'm not really sure whether I'm going to stick by it or not just yet. You said 15-0. That can't happen. What do you got?
14-1. I mean, that's easy. Not a problem.
It's easy.
I mean, it is easy. I mean, they're going to come back. I'm telling you, they're going to come back. They're going to run the table. They're going to run the table, as they say. Yep.
Here's what I want you to do.
Yes.
I want you to look me directly in the eyes.
I'm there.
You actually believe that?
Absolutely.
Would you put money on it?
Yes.
Now look at the camera and say,
Yes.
yes what?
I will put
Yeah,
money.
yes, you will put
Yeah.
money?
I'm not encouraging people to gamble.
No, but if they did.
Yes.
That's why he's a good poker player.
Yeah, that's why he's a great poker player.
I'm there. We're there.
I love you, beloved campus icon, Mike the Mailman.
Like,
Who wants to go next? I'll go if nobody wants to go.
I'll go.
All right.
I went 10-2.
yes.
And I'm still there. I don't think we make it out of the second half of the season without one more loss. And I really, going into the Iowa game, I felt like we could beat them. And if we would have had this conversation with a win, I might have said, hey, we're probably going to lose one at the end here. Like Kevin said in the last segment, Ohio State is kind of back on their game. They've gotten things kind of figured out, it seems like anyways. I think that's going to be a tough one. That's a terrible place to play. Columbus is a horrible city. So I still think that we drop that one, beat Michigan State, go to a great bowl game. Maybe the football gods are kind and somehow or another, all hell breaks loose in the rest of the country like it did this last weekend. But I still think we lose. I'm going to stick with 10-2.
There is a lot of optimism, clearly, about the state of the quarterback position at Penn State on this panel, at least thus far. So I was 10-2 also, which included a loss at Kinnick.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm the only one on the whole
So
show.
it's really all his fault.
Who picked
It's
Iowa,
his fault.
100% my fault.
But it was 24-20. You get a great prediction. That was great.
You know what?
What?
Yeah, Mike. You don't tout your accurate prediction when you pick Penn State.
Sorry.
So, I'm thinking about what I said in the last segment where I said maybe you're rooting for Sparty to have the higher aggregate rankings. On the other hand, if Michigan wins, which I think they're going to, you have the higher ranked Michigan team coming to Happy Valley.
at home, yep.
I do not think we are going to win in Columbus. We never win in Columbus. College football is a sport of traditions. Penn State losing to Ohio State is one of the great traditions that is passed around by all the other Big Ten schools, frankly. But I do think home field advantage gives us the dub over the Wolverines, pending how the quarterback position evolves to that point. We beat Maryland and Rutgers. And at that point, I expect Michigan State to have eaten 2 losses.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give us the dub. I'm going to stick with 10-2.
Okay.
I am.
Good.
Yeah. So, Kev, you were at 8-4 preseason.
Yeah.
You thought we would lose on the road at Wisconsin, which was a reasonable prediction for sure. It was a close game. How are you feeling now?
Well, I think 8-4 is basically as sunk as Mike the Mailman, right? Because if you have Roberson, it's 5-7, maybe 6-6, maybe 7-5. You're not getting 8 with Roberson. With Clifford, I don't think you're getting 8 or below, right? So my 8-4 is off the table. I think
I like that. Yeah. Well put.
Clifford's back. I think 10-2 is very, very reasonable, if not likely. I give us maybe a 1 in 11 chance of going 12-2, which I would absolutely die for if Clifford's back. Again, if Clifford's back.
That would have been great in the old Big Ten. The 1 in 11 chance. That's all we need.
Right. So that's where I'm at on it. Look, we need to get some. We need to see 14 run out of the tunnel against Illinois, and I'll feel much, much better about the situation. Ultimately, 10-2 would be extremely frustrating. It's just like the Minnesota game again, right? Like you shouldn't have dropped that one. You're in the playoffs. You shouldn't have lost to Iowa. You're in the playoffs. But that gets you to near 6 at least.
Yeah.
So better than preseason. But once you recalibrate your expectations after you see what this team's made of,
A little disappointing.
little disappointing.
Definitely.
But hey, they can give him a game out there. You never know if Sean's quarterback. Otherwise, gosh.
is a big asterisk by all of this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but we talked about that number 1 recruiting class we got committed. We got to hold that together by doing the best we can through the rest of the season.
Yep.
We got 3 more at Beaver Stadium. We got to maximize that home field advantage.
Yes.
And, we're back into it next week. And again, I just want to say I appreciate doing this with you guys. We appreciate doing this with all of you. This is a lot of fun. Enjoy this week off. Watch some college football. We'll come back, get the dub against Illinois. See you soon. We are
Out of beer.